Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Main Character Podcast with Dorian Loveday. I decided to switch things up a little bit and change the name. The reasoning behind the Dode Mode name was just because I thought it was more important to start the project than it was to have a good name. Dode Mode didn't actually mean anything to me. It popped into my brain when I was starting the podcast, and I figured it was good enough. So I've been working on rebranding and renaming stuff a little bit, and I'm super excited to share a bunch of new stuff with you guys. For one thing, I'm going to try and be posting on YouTube more, so you can actually watch these if some of you are more like YouTube people. And some of our in-person, on-location episodes are going to be pretty epic, pretty fun areas, hopefully, moving into the future. It's going to be pretty fun. So anyway, on today's episode, I am interviewing Joel Benk, who is a really good friend of mine. We rock climb together a lot. He's a big rock climber. And so he's going to tell you a bit of his story and share with you a bit of kind of the process of discovering and sort of recording new climbs. So it's going to be pretty epic. I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for coming along.
I feel paranoid sometimes after like hitting that button.
That it's not on. I recorded a whole podcast episode
Oh, thanks.
that was super interesting,
Yeah.
super educational for me, and then I didn't actually record it. I hadn't
Oh, dude.
hit record, and it was so sad. Right as we were logging off the video call,
Yeah.
I realized, and my face must have just went white. I was like, thanks so much for coming on the call. And yeah, so then we rescheduled and called again the next day. And it was still great, but
Yeah.
it was too bad.
Dude, your lace is undone.
Oh yeah, thanks. We can't have that.
Indeed. Dude, I think we hit the perfect temps.
Oh, so good.
Perfect time of day. I definitely needed that cold water. I was groggy this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. Well, Joel Benk, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
Yeah, me as well. We always have great chats, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Definitely. Yeah, so we're doing something a little bit different here. It's our first episode outside, which is super exciting and so nice just to be out here in the fresh air
Indeed.
and sunshine. So to get started, why don't you give us a little background on yourself? What kind of, the nutshell version of what brought you up to this point in life?
Oh, in life. Wow. Keeping it very vague and very general.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it all started, of course, 28 years ago. No, I don't know. I don't think anybody cares about the...
Take us back to your experience during birth.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
happened? How did you feel?
I actually had a heart malfunction, or I guess like one of my valves in my heart was not fully opened when I was born. So I was born blue, and I had to get like flown from Winnipeg to Toronto to get this surgery where they put a balloon up your carotid artery, I think, or one of my arteries, and put a balloon up there, expand it, force the valve open, and then I guess brought me back to living.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
A blue baby over here. For sure. Apparently I have like a bit of blow-by, meaning the valve doesn't perfectly seat. So as it pushes blood out, there's a little bit that comes right back in.
Okay.
When it shouldn't, but still living life.
Yeah, you are living. So Okay. How was kindergarten?
Mostly unmemorable.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
you could skip ahead to whatever part you want to.
Yeah. How about I just like lead with what I'm passionate about these
Let's do
days?
that. That's
Yeah.
that's what we're here for.
Totally. Well, for the past 7 years, I've been very passionate about rock climbing, as you know. Me and Dorian have joined for outdoor climbing, indoor climbing, and that's kind of been a bit of the basis for our friendship, I'd say, like how we got started even.
Definitely.
Yeah. I
I'll tell the quick story about how we met.
Sure.
Joel was really struggling on this climb, and I basically just gave him a tip that helped him do it.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was this climb that I had noticed at the gym that had really small, slopey, like very small holds that I thought looked nearly impossible to
Very
do.
old as well, so the texture of them was almost all gone.
Yeah.
They were like, you could like see your reflection,
Yeah.
at least in the one I was falling on.
Yeah, you're like shaving in that thing.
Yeah.
And I had never seen anyone do it. And then I pull up to the gym, and this guy is attempting it and getting quite far. I think you just had one little thing at the very end that you needed to work out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was super impressive. They were these little orange triangle holds that were like very small. It was really impressive. So we just started chatting.
Yeah.
And eventually you nailed it.
Yeah, and going back to your point where you gave me that tip, I kept on essentially just, it was pretty hot in the gym that day, or at least for me, and I was getting to the second last hold, too sweaty in the fingers and like slipping off essentially. And Dorian was like, "Why don't you just bring your chalk bag up there with you?" And I was like, "Yeah. Who would have thought that would be a good idea?" Anyways, so I sent it right after putting the chalk bag on and bringing it up there with me. So
That was legendary.
it's all because of Dorian. I sent that. Yeah.
Yep. So that's how we met.
Indeed. Yeah. I forget actually what got you into climbing.
I climbed as a kid here and there. My cousin encouraged me to try it just because it was fun. I was always more into bouldering than I was into top rope.
Right.
Just because it's more accessible and you don't need any gear or as much.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my siblings and my dad would do it, and that was super fun. And then when I moved out west, I lived really close to this giant gym, and I would drive by it all the time. So eventually I decided to walk in there, and the vibes were good. There's lots of fun people around, so I got a membership and just started climbing. And I didn't really know anyone out here when I moved out here.
Yeah.
And so it was a great place to meet people and make friends and connections, and it's a great way to exercise, great way to have fun. I don't know, it's really enjoyable and rewarding building your skill. So for a while I was climbing every day and I was making a lot of progress.
Yeah.
It felt awesome.
Yeah, climbing every day is pretty next level.
Yeah, it was great. I was making a lot of progress.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good to see, for sure.
So yeah, why don't you talk about a little bit about your, like, what type of climbing you do? What's your forte? And what do you really enjoy about climbing?
I'd say my forte is more short, hard, cruxy climbs. In the beginning, that meant, I guess, short sport climbs. It's climbing with a rope and harness and whatnot. I'd pick the short ones that had more punchy cruxes but didn't require much endurance. Endurance has never really been my forte. And I had some pretty good success there. I think the last year that I was sport climbing, like 3 years ago, I went from like 512C to 13C in like one season, which I was pretty psyched about.
Sweet.
That was like right around the time when I also moved to Calgary, and I'd say my friend group kind of changed at that point to being mostly boulderers, and bouldering already suited me quite well in terms of, preferring the shorter, more powerful climbs. And yeah, so nowadays, I get my most fulfillment, I think, from putting up new climbs and trying to find like the next hardest thing that I personally can do, with the added benefit of adding to the community with an FA or yeah. So I'd say my forte is definitely bouldering these days with a bit of development on the side.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, FA means first ascent.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your experiences FAing stuff?
Sure.
And like sort of how that looks for someone who's never even thought about being the first person to climb something?
Yeah. Yeah. With an FA, essentially you go to an area maybe that has development but hasn't been completely developed to its fullest. Maybe you see a boulder that has a line on it that looks possible, looks cool, whatever. Nobody's done it. And I find if nobody has sent a climb, especially in an area that is developed, usually that means it's on the harder side. And usually, sometimes it means also like it's shut down other people. And I mean, I have a bit of competitiveness in me. And like, if a climb is kind of notorious or it's shut other people down or hasn't been done just because it's really hard, that adds like a level of motivation for me to try and do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so essentially you're just finding lines that look like dog shit essentially because they're covered in moss or dirt or shit. But hopefully there's some like beauty underneath that you can draw out.
Cool.
And it's actually really satisfying going to a boulder that does kind of look like garbage and then turning it into a beautiful climbable surface that people after you can go and enjoy, and it's kind of there forever too. I don't know, it's very rewarding, I'd say. But the process is generally seeing a boulder. If you're psyched on it, you'd go with a wire brush if it's limestone, or maybe like a soft bristle brush if it's sandstone. That way you don't like erode the rock while you're cleaning it. Just get all the dirt, moss off, and loose rock, because loose rock sucks. My rule of thumb is like if I can move the rock even a little bit, even if it feels somewhat solid, I just get rid of it. Like if you can move it even a little bit on day one, by 5 years down the road, that thing's just gonna fall off. And
yes,
it's kind of annoying when you have a climb change in difficulty after it's established, just because now it brings up question marks as to did that change the grade? Is it the same difficulty? And I've actually found most people, like after a climb is broken, they lose quite a bit of interest in it because on average, people go out to climb and they want to know how hard the thing is that they're climbing. And when it's broken, now that brings up question marks as to what that is. Sometimes it can make it easier, sometimes it makes it harder, sometimes it just makes it a worse climb in terms of movement. But yeah, it's nice just to have it as clean as possible from day one, and then it's mostly unchanging.
Yeah. Cool. What do you think are your favorite like types of movements for climbing? Are you, I don't know, some people they excel more at crimping, or
yeah.
I'm a jug guy myself.
Dude, we all are.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What do you think, or maybe you could even just describe some of the different types of movements and different holds and stuff like that.
Well, I'd say like my favorite movement would probably be, I quite like crosses. That's essentially when one hand crosses the other, and that can essentially mean crossing for only a few inches, or it can mean crossing for like multiple feet. And a cross just adds almost equal parts physical difficulty and equal parts technical difficulty, which is quite nice. It's not just like making a hold that you're holding on to much smaller, making it physically a lot harder, but not technically. So I quite like the combo that comes with big cross moves, sometimes to the point where you would do a cross move and then essentially 360 out of it.
Cool.
Like they do that in some competitions. There's a few rock climbs that are famous for that. I mean, another fun set of moves, for me at least, are like just really wide, like iron cross type movement, where you're moving from a set of holds here, you know, maybe you match and then you go out to a set of holds like way far to the right or left. I kind of think it has the dual part of being technical and physically really demanding as well. So, and it looks really cool too.
Yeah.
It feels badass.
You're just totally extending out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Playing off of that a little bit, can you talk about the difference between just building bodily strength versus like technical ability or intelligence? I don't know what you'd call that. But there's kind of two sides to it, right? You could be super strong, but like not know what you're doing.
Totally.
And then you could know how to do everything, but not be able to actually pull yourself up there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like two sides of the same coin. And just to like really put home this point, you can have like a bodybuilder, somebody who weightlifts day in, day out. They are super strong when it comes to lifting weights. But me and you, I'm sure, have seen those guys on a climbing wall. And normally, they ain't climbing too well. You know, like, to be honest, actually, I've seen those guys be out-climbed by their girlfriends, who also, like, if it's like their first couple times climbing. And obviously, like, their girlfriends, at least from what I've seen, are not overly strong or bodybuilders or whatnot. So, yeah, technique, I think climbing is definitely a skill-based sport. So technique is maybe even more than half of what's required to excel at it. The thing is, though, to a certain point, like I think you need like a certain level of strength to do certain levels of technique. And
Right.
it's like let's say you increase your strength 5%. Well, now you can use certain amounts of technique that you wouldn't have been able to before, and maybe even you start pushing the technique above strength. At a certain point, though, you're going to have to go back to the strength side of things. And
have you felt yourself outrunning one side or the other before?
I've always kind of been outrunning the technique.
So like getting too strong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been told I'm like a very front wheel drive climber.
Okay.
Meaning like I'm just fucking yarding it.
Yeah, you're just getting up there. Sweet.
Which like I really try not to, but obviously like if you're trying to send something that you're stoked on, it's hard to not send it and simply focus on doing it in the most technical way you can, partially because at least for me, I think the technique side of things, it definitely takes like a good amount of time, a good amount of experience to properly get in tune with or understand. So it's like, do I want to send it the way I can send it, or do I want to, you know, extend the amount of sessions that it may take to do this thing by like tenfold by climbing it the most technically perfect way possible.
Right.
To be honest, I'd probably actually be a better climber taking the time to climb it the most technically best way possible, but I mean, I don't know if that's super motivating because you're not really getting the joy of like getting to the top, you know, like completing the climb, going on to a new one. Like, I think on average, most people don't go beyond like, I don't know, 2 to 4 sessions, I think, like, or at least the people that I know, like, that's like pretty average. Some people don't even go beyond 1 session. Like, in fact, I have a buddy, he's like, if I don't do it in like 3 attempts, I'm moving on. I'm like,
really?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, but honestly, like, he's basically been at the same grade for the last how many years though, so maybe that's to my point of the more time you put into a climb to climb it perfectly, the more you evolve technically and probably physically as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're only putting in 3 attempts, I don't know if you're learning too much.
Yeah.
And honestly, maybe I would be a better climber again if I put in like 10 goddamn sessions trying to like nail the climb just with utter perfect efficiency, flow, technicality.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that separates the like truly dedicated from the people who are, I don't know, just in there for a good time.
Yeah.
I feel like I fall like on the bottom half of that. Like I want a good time. I want to send stuff.
I
Yeah.
I think you're definitely one of the most dedicated people I've met rock climbing. I don't know. Joel's goal at the gym that we used to go to all the time was to climb every single climb there, which was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
Because probably they had 8 different levels, and probably the 4 lowest ones were definitely they were climbed way more than the 4 higher ones, and
Yeah.
the top level was pretty rarely sent, from what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, the top level too, it was like it's an open grade. So
It's infinite.
it could be
for
like
how,
V9
yeah,
to who knows what. I mean, that being said, for people listening, this gym was somewhat inconsistent, and there was a time or two when like V6 slipped by when it came to the C8s, which was the upper level. But it wasn't. Yeah, sometimes they would set up to V11, I'd say, sometimes 12
wow,
on the rare occasion.
yeah.
Yeah, with a bit of maybe input from myself on Instagram.
Yeah.
Being like, set hard, you bastards.
Yeah, you were an advocate for harder climbing,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, like, I'm paying money, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to be forced to maybe board climb or climb on the spray wall, you know, away from the friends I'm trying to hang out with and have a good time simply because, you know, they set too easy, like way too easy.
Yeah.
That's just kind of a bummer.
And so for anyone who doesn't know, a board climb and a spray wall, they're different types of climbs that are used for a lot of like technique building and stuff. And it's just like a flat surface with, well, a spray wall would have a bunch of different types of holds, so you can sort of build your own climb.
Mm-hmm.
And then board climbing would be like, I forget what they're called.
Well, they're like systems board, or all the holds are the same on every single board of that brand. So anybody across the world can climb the same routes essentially and add it to a database that's in an app. So that's quite nice. You get to try a very wide variety of movement set by, I guess, like an international pool of people. To do some training. Essentially, like a board climb is almost like a hangboard that's essentially just on a wall. You know, like a lot of the holds. I would say a lot of people like interchange their hangboard sessions with board sessions.
Okay.
Or at least like I do, and the people I know do that often. Like
Yeah.
it's so much more fun board climbing than hangboarding.
Yeah.
And, like it hits the fingers hard.
And hangboarding is exactly what it sounds like. It's a little board that you'd practice building finger strength and hanging there.
Yeah. With varying edge sizes.
Right, and angles and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. What do you think is something in the climbing community that needs to be said? What do you think, if you had a platform to talk to the world?
Yeah.
Every climber in the world is listening right now. What would you say?
I'd probably say like maybe we could do less whining about grades. You know, I hear like so many pro climbers, and actually everybody, all the way down to like beginners, at times just like whining about grades, and it's like, you know, grades are very subjective, of course, but they're like a decent representation of what to expect when it comes to a given boulder, and so, yeah, that's obviously going to change depending on what region of the world you're in, or maybe even the rock type, whatever. Who cares? It's like I just hear people getting butthurt quite a bit more than I think is like necessary.
Like,
you know?
people they think it's the wrong grade?
Potentially, yeah. Like, let's say it's like a V5 or something. If somebody who climbs V8 is struggling on it or can't even do it, you know, maybe they'll be upset about that.
Oh.
Or like,
this isn't legit. This is a V9.
I guess.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or like even the other way around, where maybe the V5 is, you know, super easy for a 5. Maybe it's like actually like a 3 or something. So you have like a semi-intermediate person sending their first 5, let's say, and then somebody else comes along and is like, oh, that's not even a 5. That's more like a soft 4 or something. And then now everyone's, well, now that person's like butthurt about it, and it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think it should take away from the experience. You climbed the climb, you had fun. If you actually thought that that was your hardest climb to date, then feel free to mark it down as whatever grade you think it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, they're all subjective. Some guy, maybe even like myself, has gone to this rock and climbed it. Like, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
You put whatever grade you think is the most accurate for the beta you used.
Right.
And like everyone uses different beta. Well, generally. So it's like, I just like the butthurtness or all the whining about
I like
grades.
that word, butthurtness.
I don't know. It's just
yeah. And
it's just like such a waste of time to even talk about. Like, we're wasting time talking about it right now.
Yeah. Oh, beta. Define beta real quick, just in case we have some non-rock climbers listening or watching.
Beta is just, I guess you could consider it almost the instructions for how to climb a climb, or even the sequence. So let's just say there's 20 holds on a particular boulder. Maybe you only need 13 of them to actually climb it. Well, that means if you're shorter, maybe you're going to use 14, or maybe you're going to use some holds that suit your strengths better than other people, especially if there's a variety of holds like that. So if you climb it one way, it'll probably feel much different than climbing it a completely different way with the different holds that are on the same boulder.
Right.
Yeah, so like sometimes there's like a sneaky heel hook, toe hook, knee bar, whatever, that like some technical wizard finds, and then it just makes it much easier. So then
there was this one climb that you did, and a bunch of you guys were trying it, and it was the top level in the gym. And I don't know if you remember this one, the yellow banana one.
Yeah.
And you guys figured out, was it you who figured out you could just reach up and top out, like around the corner, sort of?
I can't quite remember if it was me who figured that out or not, but I did it.
Yeah, and it became so much easier than what the intended beta was.
Yeah, I think you straight up saved 5 moves.
Yeah.
And those 5 moves, I think, were meant to be the crux.
Right.
You just like skipped them all by doing this like tricky heel.
So that would be called a beta break, right?
Oh, for sure.
Where you break the intended climb. Is there such a thing as a beta break on an outdoor climb?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I don't know if people really call it a beta break necessarily. They would just call that a fat downgrade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you found a beta break, as you're saying, you'd probably just drop the grade like by 1 or something, or maybe 2, depending on how much that break helped.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, what's on the horizon for you? What are you most excited about right now?
Well, I have some long-term projects that I'm very excited about. But in conjunction with that, I'm quite excited about the Bugaboos. I recently popped over there, and again, for people who are listening, this is a place in eastern BC, close to Radium Hot Springs. Anyways, it's an area that has a bunch of granite spires that are, thousands of feet tall. It's mostly a trad climbing area, but as with any like monolithic granite wall, there's going to be parts of that wall that fall down and turn into boulders.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah, I recently went up there with boulder pads. I don't think I was the first, but I was probably one of the very few who's ever done that.
Yeah.
And had a ton of fun, just like kid in the candy store, looking at boulders, cleaning boulders, putting up new ones. And I think the adventure bouldering is actually probably where I have the most fun, for sure. It's not necessarily where I get the most fulfillment, simply because with adventure bouldering, you're not always pushing your limits or necessarily growing a whole lot as a climber. But in terms of just pure fun, I think that's, for me at least, like the most fun bouldering that I could do.
Cool. So you're not necessarily like climbing the hardest stuff you can do, but you're discovering all this cool new stuff.
Yeah. Like finding the hardest stuff that isn't too hard and isn't too easy, I mean, it's surprisingly difficult. Yeah, it's definitely a sweet spot, and it takes time to find that right boulder to be that right experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think the Bugaboos area, though, lends itself to being quite hard, at least from what boulders I got on. So I think maybe that area specifically would be better for pushing myself while having the fun development adventure side of things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you tell me a little bit about, I forget exactly the area that you went to and if it was last year or the year before, but you went out.
Takaka Falls.
Sorry?
Was it Takaka Falls?
Yeah, maybe. And you just FA'd a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of cataloged a bunch of brand new climbs.
Totally.
Talk about that a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, I was like, I think in the early spring when Alberta was still out of season, I ended up driving up to Squamish, and this was right after the Alberta Bouldering Guide had just come out. So I was perusing that book, pretty psyched to explore all these different new areas. Obviously, being out of season, I went to Squamish first. And then I was planning on checking out Takaka Falls, kind of just as like a quick little detour. I mean, there's a huge waterfall there. I think it's like the second largest in North America. I was planning on just doing a quick detour, checking out this waterfall. In the guidebook, there was maybe 30 climbs listed, and none of them really looked all that inspiring. So I was like, let's at least lay some eyes on this thing, and it'll break up the trip, like on my way home. I went there, and immediately, similar to like going to the Bugaboos, was just like kid in a candy store. I was like, holy shit. There's huge boulders everywhere of varying size, color, shape. Yeah, it was amazing. And then the landscape to go with that was next level. Again, like climbing boulders right beside like one of North America's biggest waterfalls. You have glaciers all on the mountains around you. And then like a really nice glacial river running through the valley in the climbing area. Like, couldn't ask for more, really.
Cool.
And immediately I was fired up. I can't remember if I stayed there that day to kind of start the journey of cleaning stuff and getting things developed. I think I went and explored. But anyways, after that, I just started doing 4-day trips. I think I started in early June, and then started doing 4-day trips all the way until they closed the gates with me behind them in like October. I just like kept going back all summer long, and I guess for people listening, I wasn't working at the time. I try not to do much of that. But yeah. So I luckily also had a buddy, Eric, join me. He was working, but his work was like rather sporadic with like weeks off at a time. So I think, yeah, for a good like 3/4 of my trips out there, he was with me, grinding away, cleaning stuff, making landings, moving rocks, and being entertainment from time to time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's always good to have a good buddy around.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it keeps the psyche alive, and
yeah.
And honestly, like, yeah, like when people like hurt themselves, I mean, as long as it's not too bad, it's just so funny. And I think when developing, it just happens.
Yeah.
It just happens a lot. Like, just weird shit. Sometimes you're climbing, a hold breaks, and you fall on your ass or something, or
yeah,
you get swept away by a river, or I don't know.
That's awesome.
Sometimes you like grind the shit out of your knuckles by accident. Like,
Ooh.
it's like brand new fresh rock too. It's all like prickly. It's like sometimes you're brushing and you put a little too much behind there, and you like nick the wall with your
Oh
knuckles.
yeah.
Just take a couple of layers. Oh man, that hurts.
Gnarly.
But yeah, it's good. It's also nice having like you essentially double your efficiency with another person.
Yeah, getting the
So
actual work part done.
yeah, yeah. So not only do you have like the humor side of things, but you have just like so much more momentum and progress happening every day. I think me and him on a good day we're FAing like I don't know, like 5 climbs or something.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, some of those days were just dedicated to cleaning. You know, gotta clean the stuff first, right? So
Yeah.
but yeah, it was amazing. There's a campground just across the river from Tuckacaw Falls. Let's just say for distance wise, like maybe 700 meters, like you could see people over there. And there was this one boulder we were doing at a reasonable height up on this hill. And after cleaning it and working on it for close to an hour or something, I finally sent it. And as I topped out, some folks I guess had been watching in the campsite, and they were like hollering and cheering and shit.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's just like great vibes.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you have any more? I guess you already answered that. There's the Bugaboos is kind of the next probably version of that for you.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's harder to get people there, which could potentially hold me back just a little bit. I mean, you know, it's definitely way more fun with somebody or with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it almost feels like it would be a Tuckacaw kind of experience, but on another level where the first section of boulders that you come to in the Bugaboos, it's about 2K on a flat trail. So that first area would be like pretty chill to develop solo or just in general. But as right after that little boulder field, if you want to get to the actual Bugaboos themselves, like close to the Conrad Hut, for example, well, then you have like another 4K, I think, and like 900 meters elevation gain.
Sweet.
So it's like actually not that far, but definitely the elevation gain it makes it feel far.
Yeah.
So I think when I did it with Cole there, we had like 55-pound packs, and I think we probably took like 4 hours to get to the top. So it's like not crazy. I think technically you could probably trim that down to maybe 3 hours if you're like huffing it.
Yeah.
And then also, 3 hours there, 3 hours back, 6 hours with like 3 hours of climbing. You could probably do that in a day. But that's like
that's hardcore.
That's a heavy day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if you don't have a tent and if you don't have a bunch of backcountry food and supplies and stuff, you definitely would be a lot lighter.
For sure.
Yeah. Either way, it's such a nice break from just bashing your head against like super hard moves that take just sessions and sessions to actually stick.
Yeah.
You know? We got 8 sessions deep on this claw cave project, and I don't even know if I still don't even know if it's possible yet, because I'm like hitting this crimp on this lip that's like 6 feet behind me, and I mean, at least I'm like hitting it more consistently every session and getting more confident on that move. But
this is a first ascent?
Yeah.
So that's another part of it, I guess, is that you don't know, because no one's ever done it before, you don't even know like if it's doable.
Yeah.
Right?
Which you also get with just simply developing. But like when you're developing, especially kind of more in an adventurous area, it's a little bit more like, all right, we can see some things that are like obviously quite doable, maybe in like lower grades, like V6 under kind of thing. And then, you'll clean and send those, warm up, whatever, and then move on to the hard stuff after. And whereas this, I basically just drive an hour and a half, set up the pads. I mean, sometimes I'll warm up on the rest of the climb, but then I'm basically just firing away at this one goddamn move.
Just punishing yourself.
Yeah, for like another hour and a half. And then I added a second project to the list, so I'll spend another hour and a half after that session, after just doing that one move, doing another one move on another climb, and just
sweet
plugging away.
Nice.
I mean, also for context, pro climbers, when they send V16 or 17. Like that's kind of the peak of what has been done. And they put 30 to like 100 sessions apparently into this stuff.
Wow.
So honestly, 8 sessions compares to
yeah.
that. Doesn't sound like much.
Yeah. So a V17 is the highest.
Yeah.
How many people have done a V17, roughly?
I think it's at 5 right now.
Yeah, so that's pretty hard then.
Yeah.
If 5 people in the entire world
for sure
can do it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I would agree. And I guess maybe for some context too, the projects that I'm just like battling essentially one move on at the moment, they feel like they're between V12 and 13. So still kind of middle of the road, but I've only been climbing about 7 years, I guess, versus these pro climbers, I think on average are hitting like 15 to 20 when they're doing the top end stuff.
When you say middle of the road, it's like an exponential growth, or like if you were to draw it out.
I don't know. I think that's a misconception though.
Well, you have 5 people at the top level, and you have everyone who climbs at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I guess it would go down, right? I don't know.
The way to explain that is the difficulty itself is linear, but the effort required to be strong enough or technical enough to do those grades increases exponentially.
Okay.
And maybe that's not even the right way to phrase it, but at least that's kind of the way I rationalize it, where it does just take a lot more effort, I think, to even maintain the fitness or the strength required to hit those like top pro levels.
Right.
But I think the difficulty in itself is quite objectively linear, or it's supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds good enough for me.
Yeah.
What would your thoughts be? What would you say to someone who wants to get into climbing or has gone climbing twice with their youth group or something, and just doesn't really know, like, do I even buy shoes? Like, how do I get started?
Man, that's a great question. I think, let's just say, you've gone out twice, maybe with some rentals, and you would probably assume these people are on the younger side of things. I would say like a great cheap way, obviously, is, buy some nice cheap shoes. $130 will get you. And the membership probably wouldn't be considered the cheapest if you're a young person, but grab a membership, maybe start out bouldering, and as you get more into it and more experienced, or even start having the funds to buy a harness or a rope or whatever it is, then like expand your horizons. I do think that people would benefit a lot from trying multiple different practices, whether that's sport climb, trad. I don't know if I want to lump ice climbing in there. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Don't know if I'm too psyched on it, but I think like broadening your horizons within climbing is very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Not only from a point of just like life experience, but also there's a lot that can be learned through different practices. Like sport climbing, it's going to teach you, or it's going to teach you and maybe build habits of climbing more efficiently, which that's super valuable. And bouldering, obviously, it's going to teach you kind of how to try hard. It's going to be more it'll be more limit orientated. So it's probably going to progress your strength as well as your ability to do uniquely hard moves faster. But you're probably not going to be instilling much efficiency within that technique. But anyways.
Right, because for bouldering, you're kind of just going really hard and then you sit down for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Well, on average. I'm not going to say that to everybody. There's some people who love just like going in and doing a ton of this easy stuff and whatever. That's totally chill.
Right.
But I guess if
it gives you the opportunity though to work on a really hard move.
Yeah.
And walk away from it, then try it again.
Exactly. Whereas sport climbing, it's a little bit more about, how can I make the easy sections of a 100-foot cliff easier? How can I make, obviously, the hard sections easier as well, but it's much more of an efficiency-based, a bit more endurance-based too, practice that, I don't know, just instills slightly different skills than bouldering would on average, I think.
Cool.
But I think boulders could benefit or can benefit from doing that practice. That being said, though, it's probably, like, I think the best boulders in the world typically are specialists who probably never touch a rope.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to be talking out of my ass here. Like, if you want to just specialize and be the best that you ever possibly could be, I mean, probably don't rope climb.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's great life experience, and it also gives you the opportunity to maybe assess whether or not you even like sport climbing more than bouldering, or, you know, different people get different things out of their climbing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, again, don't want to just do a handful of hard moves all session long. Some people just love feeling the flow, doing like hundreds of moves, which is totally possible with sport climbing. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's nice to at least like feel out different aspects of climbing and
Yeah,
be a
definitely.
bit more
Some
well-rounded.
people, you know, some people might not want to fall from the top of the bouldering
Oh yeah, on the pads.
wall onto the pads, right?
I've heard that so often, actually. People are like, bouldering is so dangerous. You know, you're landing, or they're basically saying, like, if you fall from a sport climb, kind of no matter what, as long as your belayer is competent,
Yeah.
you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Whereas with bouldering, I guess, like, every time you fall, you're risking hurting yourself, I guess.
And you're risking hurting the little kids who don't have any spatial awareness and
Yeah.
are standing right underneath you.
Yeah.
Um,
I say crush them.
yeah.
Like, the best way to learn is to
Yeah.
get crushed.
Yep. They won't do it again.
Right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I've told kids who are walking right underneath my buddies, like, yo, the pads are not a walkway.
Right.
The pads are for climbing and falling. So, you know, walk on the concrete, that's clearly a walkway.
Yeah.
They don't care. They just, like, keep moseying around underneath everybody. I'm like, well,
Oh, yeah.
like, obviously they ain't learning from me just saying that, so.
Yeah. I remember hearing a
Get
friend
crushed.
say that, you know, electrical covers, you can get these little plug-in plastic things that cover over the electrical outlet.
Oh, yeah.
So that little babies don't stick their fingers in. And I remember hearing a friend saying that he would never put those in for his kids. He just calls them life lessons. Let them try it out.
Dude, for real. I wasn't a baby when I did this, but one of my uncles I lived with, he had like a slightly unfinished basement.
Yeah.
But my bedroom was in that basement, and there's like no electrical covers. And I definitely put my finger in the socket itself, like where the light switch is, and for sure electrocuted myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I was working in construction once, and I don't know what job I was doing at the time. Like, it was all carpentry, but there was I must have been maybe like mudding or drywalling around an electrical outlet.
Yeah.
And I grabbed right on the. I
right
might
on
have
the
even
leads?
gone like this.
What the hell?
But I grabbed right on the two little, like, the sides where the wires are screwed
Yeah,
into the
dude.
thing. I was like, zing! And there was black stuff all around it. And the electricians came in and they were like, did someone touch that? Like,
That's hilarious,
how are you
dude.
alive?
Just straight up grabbing the leads.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
man.
like, it was so funny.
At least it shorted out for you.
I guess. I
Yeah.
felt something, but I didn't die, so.
Well, like the fact that there was a bit of smoke and like whatever, that means it shorted out.
Okay.
Sometimes you can like electrical, or the current can cause your muscles to like contract at like almost maximal output.
Wow.
So sometimes when people grab electrical devices like that, it'll just like force them to lock onto it,
Huh.
and they'll be vibrating, dude, until they just like collapse.
Jeez.
My uncle was on like this ladder, I think probably standing on like the top rung or something, as everyone does in construction.
Of course.
He basically hit that. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe like changing out an outlet or like whatever, doing some electrical work. Grabbed onto something that he shouldn't have, or maybe it was miswired. So regardless, he was in that position where he got some current running through his arm. It like caused him to like lock onto it, and he had to like kind of fling his body off this ladder to like get himself off.
That's crazy.
Off his grip. Yeah.
Wow. Any broken wrists or anything?
I don't think so. No, I think he was all right. But
yeah, those guys are tough.
Yeah, that's just like, it's a good story though.
Yeah, that's
like
awesome.
In hindsight, I'm psyched it happened. Yeah, I mean, again, like as long as nobody's breaking bones, we should all laugh about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some broken bones are probably okay too sometimes. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I've never broken one, so
Me
I can't
neither,
say.
man.
Yeah. I think if we had broken a bone, we'd be like, let's stay away from
Yeah.
laughing there. Let's keep the laughs for later.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see.
For sure.
Or hopefully not.
Hopefully not, dude. Yeah. Maybe when we're 80 or something, break a hip.
Yeah.
I hope my hips are still swinging when I'm 80.
That would be probably the worst time to break a bone. Because then it might just be over for you.
Yeah, you could just die.
You might just die.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's when you're truly living, when you break a hip and you perish.
Yeah.
That's life right there.
It's crazy how people just, like, they miss a step and then
oh yeah,
they're done.
You're just walking down the sidewalk, maybe like, yeah, you catch your foot on like a little crack or something.
Yeah.
Go for a dive and you die.
Yeah, and like you can drop a baby on their head and they will bounce back up to you.
What?
Not quite. But their bones are like very supple.
All right. For a second there, I thought this was going in like a morbid direction.
No.
Okay.
Like accidentally, if you were to do so.
You're not making a sport out of it.
No, don't actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess people just get brittle.
I suppose so. Yeah. Part of life.
Yeah.
That's partially why too. I mentioned that I don't work too much, or I try not to. I'm like in my 20s. I'm 20. I'm in my 20s once. I don't know if I want to just give that up to some bastard for a paycheck, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm all about that. I'd rather just, I guess I'm not poor, but I'd rather be poor almost and like actually get the most out of my 20s than just be like in some office or building or wherever the hell.
Yeah.
Just like plugging away, making somebody else rich.
I empathize with that big time.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd want to add? I'm sure we could go on forever.
Yeah. I don't even know how long we have been going, but
no clue.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anything to add, eh?
The stage is yours.
Well, I would say rock climbing is a great sport. I would recommend everyone try it. I would say it's a great sport for maybe humbling yourself a bit. I know I get humbled by it all the time. I did a comp yesterday, and I mean, I got third, but I also felt like I climbed pretty bad. And there were climbs that certainly took me way more tries than really I was hoping they would or even should have. But yeah, and like you have a bunch of people that climb harder than you. That'll always be the case, essentially.
Yeah, there's one guy in the world. I don't know who it is, but there's someone who's at the very top.
Yeah, but not even that guy at the top, you could find a boulder in a style that he sucks at and they'd be better at him at it.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, climbing is very fun. It's a great way to push yourself and like stay like full body fit, I would say, like head to toe kind of thing. But it's also very humbling, and I mean, at least for me, that's good. Keeps my ego in check.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. That's another thing I love about climbing is that you need to use your entire body.
Yeah, like, and intelligence too. It's like solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
To get to the top. I think that's why a lot of engineers and like a lot of like people on the TISM are into climbing. Yeah, like it's pretty analytical.
Yeah.
With how to place your body in such a way where you can do the next move, or even just figuring out like what the next move looks like or is.
We should start like a TV show called Climbing on the Spectrum
or
something.
Well, that's like, yeah, basically the entire community would be on that show.
Yeah.
That means, I mean, I'm joking around. I think I've actually like, me and one of my good buddies, we've done like self-tests to see if we're on the TISM. Basically because our girlfriends suggest we should.
They're like, there's something not right here.
Yeah, it's been said a couple times, but we didn't score either low enough or high enough on the test, whichever one it is.
Right.
to qualify. So
Oh.
yeah, maybe next time. I'll study for
try
that
again.
test. Yeah. Nah. But yeah, there is some. Actually, maybe that's another good thing about climbing. There's like a lot of weird, quirky. There's like just a huge range of people within the sport, and actually, like we met through climbing. It's a great way to again meet people, make friends, be active. It's like I don't know, pretty wholesome. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Gets you outside a lot like if you're into outdoor climbing.
It's a pretty full,
Yeah.
well-rounded.
It's the kind
hobby.
of thing too that you can do when you're like 70 or something. I think I've even heard of like 80-year-olds still crushing it, probably harder than me. Like
Yeah, I believe it. There's some legends out there.
Totally. So it's not like a super high. I forget. It's just it doesn't like wear you out the way that like rugby, football, those type of sports. Your joints are gone by the time you're like 25 or something.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like the sport has. You can have longevity within the sport, which is kind of nice.
Right. It's very, like, I don't know, incremental. I don't know how you.
Maybe like low impact.
Yeah.
Unless, you take like a massive fall off a high ball.
Yeah, but you can kind of pick.
Yeah.
It just goes up, like you were saying. It's a linear progression, so you can start at this stuff that's very close to climbing a ladder.
Yeah.
Right, and then you can go infinitely harder.
For sure.
From there, so it's super accessible. You can have kids doing it, old people doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the super fun things about it too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Also, it's slightly harder to do this, but you can also have high-level climbers climbing with beginners even. Like there's not like a lot of, well, maybe there's a bit of gatekeeping / like maybe a little bit of elitism, because obviously if you're a very dedicated climber who's maybe one of the better ones within your region, like it's more enjoyable more often than not to climb with similar folks. But as I was saying before, that you can go to a climbing gym, or generally you can even go outside, and if your buddy is one of these strong guys, he can do his session while you're climbing some easy thing beside him. Like it's the type of thing that can, again, actually, yeah, like you're not like a total beginner, but you're definitely like there's definitely a big gap potentially between the grades we climb. So, but we still have a fun time climbing together.
For sure.
So that's also kind of nice about it. Like you're not only limited to meeting and hanging out with beginners. Like the community is pretty friendly, and there's nothing saying you couldn't climb or be friends with the top guys or whatever.
Yeah, when I started climbing at that gym, I almost made too many friends. It was like,
shit.
who do I climb with? You know, there's too many people here. And everyone's so nice, and everyone's offering, especially with rope climbing, since you need a partner.
Yeah.
There's online groups you can find people and meet people, and lots of people are willing to belay you in exchange for you belaying them.
Totally.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet sport.
Definitely. Go climbing.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Even if you're 80.
Even if you're 80.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
For sure. Thanks for having me,
This
man.
was a fun one.
Yeah.
Pretty epic out here.
I loved it.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, if that's it, have a good day, folks.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ah, that was a ton of fun, man.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love that.
So on the intro and outro to this episode, for the video aspect of it, I tried to capture this gorgeous sunset behind me. I kind of missed it, but it's still beautiful. Every moment outside is beautiful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode with Joel Benk. You can go check out his socials. I'll leave his links in the description, etc., etc. If you want to give me a review or a 5 stars or 1 star, whatever you like, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, YouTube now, it's much appreciated and it helps out a bunch. And I'm excited to bring you guys a bunch of really cool stuff not too long in the future. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Main Character Podcast.